We're continuing to expand economic development. I remember an independent film production company came to my hometown of Tallapoosa, and they did a movie called Stars and Bars, and it starred Daniel Day-Lewis, and I think Amanda Plummer was in it. And anyway, I think 4 people saw it. But anyway, it had a huge economic development thing for our county because hotels and motels were booked up, restaurants were packed, gas stations and the grocery stores were all making money. That was in 1989. Lisa, right now, what do you think our impact is in the film industry? And will it continue to grow, or is it going to hit a wall?
In film, you know, the tax incentive has done so much to just make the film and television industry, as everyone was speaking earlier, explode. And it's, I think in 2007, the economic impact of film in Georgia was like $244 million. And last year it was right at $3.2 billion. And that's been driven by the incentive. And with music, thanks to Georgia Music Partners, there was an economic impact study done in 2011 that showed the economic impact of music on Georgia was $3.7 billion. So while right now film's getting a lot of attention and it's very sexy and it's new, it's kind of like Lady and the Tramp, you know, we're the little puppy, we've been there all along and the new baby comes. But it's awesome. All of that for Georgia is awesome because entertainment is growing. I think you said earlier, you know, rising tide brings everybody up. And I think that the opportunities are going to continue to grow. The incentive seems safe for now, and we see more infrastructure coming in, the studios, and hopefully we'll see more post-production coming in. I think that's going to have a great effect on music. So I think we can only go up. And if there were one challenge that I could point to, it would be that in Georgia, we've sort of worked in silos. Film is over here, film and TV, and digital media is here, and advertising is here, and music is here. But to me, it's all part of the creative economies. And the more that we market ourselves and put our numbers together and put us out there as a state of content creators, I think the stronger we'll be. We are a media cluster, we're a content creation cluster, and it's just going to get better.
What about like people coming here to do reality TV shows? I want us to produce a kind of a sophisticated reality show, kind of like Duck Dynasty. Good God, it's like the members of ZZ Top went and got shotguns or whatever and hunting ducks. I don't know. But that's the hottest thing on television. You laugh. Hottest thing on television. What, Walking Dead? What is that produced? That's produced in Georgia, right? At one time, it was the hottest thing on AMC, right? Still hot, isn't it? What about those kind of shows? Are they going to continue to do scripted and reality shows in Georgia?
I think
great
they will.
shows like Honey Boo Boo.
Well, I know more about music than I do about reality TV, but it seems to be popular, and that's one of the places that there are a lot of folks getting music, and the reality TV shows that are producing in Georgia are using a lot of local musicians who are composing and doing music. So again, I think all of the media, film, and TV ultimately creates more opportunities in music.
What about Atlanta's position as a hip-hop capital? Is it, we retain that?
I think so. I mean, CeeLo, Killer Mike, T.I., these guys are still on the very top. I mean, Blurred Lines, that's T.I., and well, Robin Thicke and Pharrell part of that, but T.I. is really what's important to me. Yes,
Miley Cyrus is not going to walk out here, is she? Did anybody see that in the video musical? What? I don't know who won anything, but I do remember that performance. What about music? Getting your music on TV. What do people do, Janet? How can they do that? Do they submit it to the producer, or can they submit it directly to?
Well, for the most part, for a TV series, in a TV series, I mean, that's usually handled by, a lot of times handled by the music supervisor and that kind of thing, but that's one of those who you know. That's really who you know. There's the library, there's different, music library kind of thing, and that's a toughie. That's a who you know. No, that's where it goes in networking. Know your music supervisors, develop those relationships, get your music out there.
Peniece, let me ask you, Janet said something earlier that really kind of hit home. It's important for you to know your business. Like my grandmother used to say, the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing.
Well, knowing your business, it's so funny. I started as a singer-songwriter, and I met a young lady in college, and when she sang, it gave me the chills, and I was like, wow, she sings better than me. I need to be her manager. So let me learn the business. And the more I learned about the business, it was just like going down, like being Alice in Wonderland, and I'm like learning all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, there's publishing. Oh my God, I could work from anywhere in the world and send songs and collect royalties. Are you kidding me? It was like amazing to me. And so it's funny because the more I learned about the business and something that you touched on earlier with the schooling, the education and the music programs, I studied English literature and music technology management, and I thought it was really important to have that duality. So to keep many irons in the fire and then to manage this young lady and learn about publishing, it's made my reach and my impact so much greater because it wasn't just about me being a singer, and now I teach the business to young people. So, it's absolutely essential for that because without it, you can't even, you may have a manager and an attorney and an accountant, but you can't even have or set an expectation or have, an informed conversation with them because you don't even know what to ask. You know what I mean? So it's really important and it's essential. And again, that's why we do what we do at SESAC in offering that content so that young people can learn. And then you kind of get to see who is serious and who's not.
One thing that I noticed in my younger colleagues in radio and younger musicians, Georgia has got such a rich heritage of music. And Lisa, thank you for being the caretaker of this wonderful facility that houses the music of Otis Redding. When Otis Redding died, I missed school that week. I'm sorry, I was really tore up about it. The Allman Brothers Band, Travis Tritt, Alan Jackson, Trisha Yearwood, Lena Horne. What is it about people don't really know the heritage of Georgia music?
That's something near and dear to my heart. I think part of it is branding and telling your story, and I think what is one of our greatest assets is also one of our greatest challenges. If you think of Nashville, you think of country music. That's it. It's real simple. But when it comes to Georgia, we have visionaries and innovators in every single genre. We have hip-hop, as you said, and rock and country and contemporary Christian and bluegrass. And when you have all of that, it's sort of hard to fit that into a little slogan. But for me, the great thing about Georgia and one of our greatest assets is our talent. And there's something really special. And for years and years, I've been trying to put my finger on it, whether it's sweet tea or kudzu or red clay or, who knows? But we have this long history of talent who, I think there's something inherently Southern that our talent sort of really respects their roots and the traditions and heritage. But there's this spirit where they then take that somewhere else and move into the future. If you look back at Little Richard and Otis Redding and Ray Charles and James Brown, they all came out of music from the church, but they took it somewhere else, each in a different direction. Little Richard's the architect of rock and roll, and James Brown, funk and rap and hip hop. Wouldn't be here without James Brown. And Otis Redding, just the king of soul.
Exactly.
James Brown's estate just made money.
But the roots of all of those artists who have impacted Georgia music are here in Georgia. You know, there's a shared geography, but sort of a shared spirit. And the great thing about that talent and that spirit of being a visionary is commerce follows that. Around all of these periods of talent, these economic engines have grown. Joel Katz was talking earlier about Bill Lowry, who started this mega publishing empire here in the 60s. And that was all based around Atlanta talent.
Right.
Joe South and Ray Stevens and Classics 4 and all those artists. And then in the 70s, Phil Walden did it in Macon around all those Southern rock artists and having Marshall Tucker Band and Allman Brothers Band and Wet Willie. And in the 80s, the artists that came out of both Atlanta and Athens, and REM, and B-52s, and Danny Beard, and everything he did. And then, of course, after that in the 90s, when L.A. Reid and Babyface came here, everything they did was based on talent here in Georgia. And I think in each case, all that talent has created this huge ecosystem around it. And I think now we're in such a great place because the talent is not only artistic, it's tech talent. And we put those together in this knowledge-based and content-demanding society. We're in a terrific place in Georgia, but marketing ourselves and continuing to tell our story, you know, we need more money to do that, and we need people coming together. Again, everybody working together to tell the story of Georgia as a creative economy.
But Chris, let me ask you, what about your students? Do they know about the rich heritage of Georgia music?
They do, and we really try to get them going as well. The president of the Atlanta Institute of Music is a fellow by the name of Mike Driscoll, who has been an Atlanta music staple since the 1970s. You can't even go out to lunch with him just to kind of have a sandwich where he hasn't taught somebody's kid guitar lessons in 1978 or something like that. And then I really try as well as the music business teacher, because I grew up here in Marietta and we all wanted to be REM. Like that was like the goal. Like that was like, man, that's it. And then that also led to a gateway of finding all these other cool bands that were around here. I really got into Guadalcanal Diary and Driving and Crying, and even now into the Butch Walker and the Marvelous Three, which is a little bit more recent than that as well. And that's just really, you know, for me, and I try to pass a lot of that along, and even into the R&B and the hip hop community and all my country. The country industry is still really huge here in Georgia as well. Most of my best placements are of country touring bands because they always pay and they always make money. And even going to Nashville, when I was working in Nashville for a little bit, I kept working with all these Georgia artists, Trisha and Travis, and now Zach has really taken off. So, you know, I really try to push that even on to my students as well. And I know, you know, the president of School Night does as well because he's been in it, you know, quite some time as well.
What, you know, one of the great brands in our city, and I put them up there with Coca-Cola and Delta and Chick-fil-A, is Turner. Is there going to be more opportunities for musicians and songwriters, perhaps in programming that's going to be on Turner?
More opportunities for singers and songwriters, that you say, is
With the Turner brand. I mean, you got more programs coming up, or do you just?
Well, it seems that, we always have music in the shows. I mean, I don't know about what, as far as what's coming up in the programming necessarily. I mean, it's not like a show about, the singer-songwriter kind of thing. Although I think that, music, just as the viewers, just expect to see some music in a show. I mean, visualize a show with no music at all. And it's just like, so you're going to see a lot more music. And I want to say that because there is such good quality music that's out here, and you talk about the different genres of music, that it's just, even just what's here in Georgia. And I know I said, because I see it in my inbox, I've just met artists around at different events, and we have every genre that's here. I mean, I know you say that it's the hip hop capital, but I mean, I've met artists that in every genre here that are just amazing. And so with the incredible pool of music that you have here, I think that, and then the exposure, that we have here, and a lot of I know it's some of the producers that I've met that we have, at Turner, I know that they really like to use some of the local music. Just because, and I'll tell you what, because it is creatively, I know I've been told, they would say is, a lot of them, they want to use it as when they're looking for certain things for promos, they say, we want to use something that you haven't heard before. We want to hear something new. I mean, if there's something like, oh, but that's already playing on this car commercial, that's already playing onto that, and they don't want it. They want something that's brand new, that's fresh, that's great. And find a local artist that's something that's...
Talking about local artists, one thing that over the years that I went to a lot of showcases here in Atlanta, and Peniece, I know you've produced a lot of these showcases. How does somebody go about getting a showcase?
Well, the opportunities are very coveted, and so I just reserve them for the people that I see that, go the extra mile and that are talented and handling their business.
There are people in the music business in this town that are the best at what they do. Case in point, Jan Smith. Jan Smith is probably she could have been one of the great blues artists of all time. She has got a terrific voice. She's worked with Usher and Justin Bieber, and he is, I guess, a global phenomenon now. And his whole thing actually was launched here in Atlanta. Not in LA, not in New York, not in Chicago, but Atlanta, Georgia. Should we open up the floor for questions? Can we do that? We have time to do that? Take a few questions?
Hey, I'm actually a part of a local jam band, TX, Tyrannosaurus Explosion. And all this has been really interesting to hear.
It's a killer name.
Yeah, thank you. And I noticed that you guys have such an importance on branding. And it's really interesting because I always talk to a bunch of my friends about all the popular artists today, Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry, Justin Bieber. And I always ask them, can you really name 5 or 6 of their songs? And it's sort of a little bit of a struggle. And I always feel that, do popular musicians today even need to make music? Because it seems like they're more so Twitter stars and personalities, and they kind of put that first before their actual content. So is there really even a need for these people to exist?
Absolutely. And when you listen to their music, they've done a great job at combining their artistry with traditional, with musicality, and it's funny, I was listening to Katy Perry's Roar this morning, and that's an awesome song, and when I was listening to the instruments and the harmonies, it was awesome. And so, and I'm a huge Rihanna fan, and when I listen, it's it's trendy, but it definitely it's musical, and I know people kind of are hard on pop stars today, but they're very talented, and beyond being talented, they work hard. You know what I mean? And the work ethic that they present is nothing to squawk at, and it would be really interesting to see if you'd be willing to work that hard for what you want.
I would say please stick with the jam band genre. That is the most loyal fan base you can get into. They have discretionary income, that fan base does, to throw on hundreds of dollars in concert tickets. I talked to Jimmy Herring from Widespread Panic about this a couple weeks ago. And man, it's really, he took quite the jump going from playing in, the bands that he was in and his original project when he took the gig with Panic a few years ago. Man, he's like, Chris, I can't tell you, it's the same kids that chill out $70 every ticket to come see us no matter where we're playing. He's like, this is amazing. And we find that as well. Some of our best students are the jam band cats at AIM because they're into several different genres of music and they're very teachable and they're very open mind to jazz and rock and electronic and hip hop. So stay in the jam band thing, man. That's the way to go.
I think great content and great music will always be the foundation of this industry. And I think there's a lot of great music out there today. I think Lady Gaga is a great singer. I think Miley Cyrus is a great singer. And Mike Will I Made It from Atlanta, Georgia did produce that hit song. And, they're all artists. And Jan Smith taught Justin Bieber, but they're brands too, because that's how you make the money. You know, you put a great pop song out there that everybody wants to hear, and then you'll get this sponsorship and that placement. But there's the Civil Wars, they're out, and that's great music. And Jason Isbell is everywhere. So I still think great songwriters and great musicians will be the bedrock of this industry.
I'm Tim Peake, and I have a question in regards to production in Atlanta, in regards to recording studios and that kind of infrastructure. You know, typically you hear about Nashville having the big recording studios and things like that where musicians kind of gravitate to get their records produced. How does Atlanta and the Atlanta area compare to that? And is that an opportunity that we could invest in the music industry here in Georgia?
I absolutely think so. You know, when I first started at SESAC 7 years ago, we had these plaques made for the different studios around the city, and we sat there, and it was so easy to write down 20 of them, but it ended up that we had 40 plaques made with each studio's name, and it was so astounding to see, wow, there are all these pockets of studios, you know, and it wasn't home studios that we were making these out to. It was like, you know, real ones. And I can think right back in like West Midtown behind Chattahoochee, there's like 10 that I can think of right there, you know. So it's very rich. They're in the pockets and they're in these warehouses in the back, but they're there and they're thriving. I went to the 1-year anniversary of 12 studios. They opened last year, and that was started by Dina. I can't think of her last name. Right, Dina Marto, who was with Ellie Reed for a long time. And it was so funny, there were so many people that I just came up with in Atlanta that were, you know, the executives and the songwriters in the studio. It was like a family reunion in there. So it's thriving and it's rich.
On the 5th of October, the Georgia Music Awards, the Georgia Music Hall of Fame is coming up at I think it's going to be back at the Georgia World Congress Center. If there are any tickets available, you should show up, because you will see the rich, rich history in this wonderful state. And we go back to Thomas Dorsey. Anybody grew up in here with gospel music? Thank you very much. One of the greatest gospel music songwriters grew up down I-20 in Villa Rica, Georgia, named Thomas Dorsey, who wrote Just a Closer Walk with Thee and There'll Be Peace in the Valley. He's from Georgia. He's in the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. The history of this state is huge. There was a chance Atlanta had the opportunity to be the country music capital of the world. Back in the 1920s, some people came down with the record labels out of New York and said, we want Atlanta to be the hillbilly music capital of the world. And the manager who was with WSB Radio went on in 1922, and his wife did not like the hillbilly music. And he said, we'll pass. Okay, they went up the road to Nashville, and Nashville became Music City, USA. But Atlanta is still a huge driving force in the music business. There is so much opportunity here. And I think I just want y'all to show your love for these wonderful people that took their time to be here today to share with you. Thank you very much. Let's hear it for them. Thank you.